I love being from here. And I think to be able to show my friends who aren't Turkish, what we're about, our language, our food. I don't limit myself to making just Turkish or just English or just Turkish English. I think for me, it's really exciting to be explored with all these different colors. And when I hear my foreign friends oh my God, I don't know what you're saying, but it's so catchy. I love the melody. For me, that's okay, job done. I look at musicians as chefs sometimes. It's nice to be able to cook from different cuisines and maybe show a friend, try this cuisine, because I mixed a bit of this spice and this spice. Why don't you try it? Do we wave? See you next time.
Welcome to Pop and Politics, your guide to art and culture in Turkey. I'm your host, Kenan Behzat Sharp. Each week, we host an artist, musician, director, writer, actor, or other creative worker in Turkey. And today we are joined by Selin Geçit, a singer and songwriter. Selin was born in Turkey and raised and educated in the UK. She first gained a following for her covers of classic Turkish pop songs with her father on YouTube. Their cover of Aşkın Nur Yengi's Yalancı Bahar went viral, reaching 10 million views on social media. In 2020, Selin launched her professional music career when she released the song Gidip Gel with Warner Music Turkey. The song interestingly mixes English and Turkish lyrics, and it was followed by an English version of the song, Give and Take. Since then, Selin has collaborated with legendary songwriters like Onur Özdemir to release the single Asi, and then she released the song His with her own lyrics and music. She made her international debut with the song Cool in August 2022 and was featured on Spotify's New Music Friday playlist in 16 countries. Her recent collaboration with Romanian singer Roxanne saw her featured on Spotify's banner in New York Times Square. Building an international following with her strong vocals, retro style, and bilingual lyrics, Selin represents a new path forward, perhaps, for Turkish popular music. Selin, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
So I wanted to start with your background and how you got interested in music. I know you've said from a very early age, and even perhaps before being born, you were sort of destined to love music. Can you tell me about that?
Sure. I think, you kind of already said it in the bio as well, but my dad plays a very prominent figure in my life as someone who introduced me to music. I guess I could say it started before I was born. That's what he tells me. As early as before I was born, classically it started when I was in my mother's womb, and he played music, and he was like, oh, I'm going to make this child a musician, and with music around the house, records playing around the house. I think he kind of manifested it into my destiny. I think he always wanted to be a musician. He's a musician. I don't want to say he always wanted to be. He is a musician, but he always wanted to make a career with it because he was also very interested as a young boy, shall I say, when he was doing musicals and theater in his school. But I don't think, unfortunately, his family never fully supported him on that path. So I think he saw it as an opportunity to support me when he realized he was having a daughter. So it started from a young age, and with him, we kind of just, with his support, with listening and making music with him, it kind of just grew into what I wanted to make my career, I guess. And still to this day, I'm working on trying to improve what I can do, how to be even better at what I do. So that's how far back it goes, I think.
Definitely. So one thing I find really interesting about your music is you combine these different traditions. You've talked about in other interviews how you grew up listening to the Beatles and Pink Floyd and Santana, but at the same time, there's Ajda Pekkan and Sezen Aksu and all these kind of classic pop singers. Can you tell me about that kind of multicultural background of yours? I know you moved to the UK at a young age and then came back to Turkey at a certain point. Can you tell our viewers a little about that? Of course.
So I was born in Istanbul, and around 99, I'm not sure of the exact date, but I was born in 98, so around 99, because of my dad was working with Hilton Hotel at the time, and he was manager of the current hotel he was at in Istanbul. And then there was an earthquake. I think most people might remember who were around that time. So with the earthquake, it was kind of an opportunity for him to transfer to another hotel. So then we transferred. We actually moved to Northern Ireland, and then I think in that realm of business, transferring is quite a common thing. So we were actually moving around a lot. I was constantly, obviously, moving to different schools, getting to know new people each time. I think I might have changed schools 5 times in my youth. So we went to Northern Ireland, Then we went to Scotland. Then we went to London. Then we went back to Northern Ireland for 6 years. And then we returned to Istanbul around 2011. So I finished my high school studies in Istanbul. And then for university, I went back to London. So actually, if we look at a broader scale, I was most of my upbringing was in the UK, but the summers I came back, it was always in Turkey. And of course, the 6 years I spent during my high school studies was also in Turkey. So I definitely had the best of both worlds in a way. It was the culture there and the culture here. And I think naturally that seeps into someone's art as well. So I think maybe if I'd grew up in Turkey more, I would be even better at writing Turkish songs, or maybe Turkish melodies would have been engraved even more into my DNA. But naturally, my environment was in the UK for a long period of time. So because of the nursery rhymes, the music played at schools, at shopping malls, it was always the Western melodies that were kind of engraved into my DNA. But of course, when I came back for holidays and summers and with my grandparents and obviously parents as well, the Turkish music was also fed to me on a pretty large scale as well. So I think even now, I've always been torn, until a certain point, I was always like, oh my God, do I do Turkish? Do I do English? Do I do Turkish? Do I do English? But I think naturally you can't hide or run away from any of them. So I think mixing them together kind of made it feel even, I think it just added a new color. It made it feel even more real for me. And sometimes, I'm sorry if I'm going too much into the question,
No.
But sometimes I think, sometimes I write a song and I'm like, this feels right just in English. And sometimes I'll write a song and I'm like, this feels right just in Turkish, because the languages are both so different, but both have their own colors and their beauty in their own way. And sometimes I think mixing them is also pretty cool because it's a whole different layer, it's a whole different color.
So yeah, that's exactly the thing I wanted to ask you about, this mixing of languages. And one thing I find interesting, you're describing the way you grew up in these different contexts. I really relate to that, because I'm from a Turkish American family, grew up mostly in the States. So my brain also works like that with that mixing of languages. So when you put out Gidip Gel, for example, I loved it because it sort of effortlessly flows between the two languages. So you have one sentence in English and then a chorus in Turkish, or vice versa. And I wanted to ask more about that mixing.
Yeah. It was actually quite new for me because before that, I had never actually, I don't want to say I'd never written a Turkish song. It was more like I never had the courage to release one because I felt, why would people want to listen to my Turkish English stuff? It's kind of strange, isn't it? But then I was like, you know what? You could have a picture in black and white, amazing, but why not have the same picture in green, also amazing, but having them both together, maybe it's weird, but I think it also creates something different. And with that, I think I was like, you know what? We're in the middle of a pandemic, anything could happen. I should just release this already. So I was kind of like, okay, let's do this. And I actually wrote it when I was in a quarantine going through London and Istanbul. So I was in the quarantine in Istanbul. I sat down. I was like, all right. I had this melody in my head actually when I was on the train in London in the underground, and it was kind of like I was like, okay, this could be English, but I'm just gonna try and make it Turkish. And then I don't know why, but the word gidip gel, because of the train motion, I think, is what triggered me to say, okay, I feel like this could be gidip gel. It's even in my notes. I just wrote gidip gel. It's kind of silly, but I was like, it works. And then I just expanded it. And then we had gidip gel. But then I wanted to rebirth the song in fully English and make it give and take. Because I think having it bilingual was really cool. But then part of me was like, I also kind of just want to make this a full English song as well. And a lot of people really like that. So I think I don't limit myself to making just Turkish or just English or just Turkish English. I think for me, it's really exciting to be explored with all these different colors. One day you wake up and you want to make a painting in just red. One day you wake up and you want to add a splash of blue. One day you just want to add 10 colors. I think if it's something authentic coming through you, I think if you believe what you're putting out and you enjoy what you do, I think at the end of the day, there's going to be people that also enjoy looking at it or listening to it in this case.
Definitely. And that's what we've seen because there's been a real response to that.
I hope so.
So yeah, thinking about this language thing, it's interesting. I was thinking before this interview about different attempts that have been made in Turkish popular music to try to reach out to the world.
Yeah.
And it goes really far back, actually. I was thinking about people like Tülay German, who in her early days would release, would perform songs in English like a lot of people in the 1960s. And then you have Barış Manço, of course, who was a real talented person with languages, and he would do songs in French or in English, but of course not in that time mixing. And then there's been like more recent attempts with like the Eurovision competition, where like Sertab Erener famously did an English song, or the rock band Athena also. So there's been these moments where people are trying to like, do songs in English as a way to branch out, and it hasn't always worked, But then I've been thinking about this new generation who's kind of more comfortable mixing things rather than just straight up doing an English album or whatever else. So that you're doing this separately. There's people like Emir Taha, who's an interesting figure, also Turkish, but living in London, I believe, or in England. There's a singer named Bade, who's also mixing languages. So I'm curious about that attempt, because we've seen that also in other examples, like K-pop. I mean, one of the signature things, right? The biggest.
Bilingual pool,
Exactly. And, there'll be like a verse in Korean and then a chorus in English, and people who don't even understand Korean will love it. So I'm curious, with the kind of thing you are doing and other people in your generation, do you think we could see something like, instead of K-pop, T-pop, Turkish pop? And what would it take for the really great Turkish musicians to get more known in the world?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good question, a very wide question. I guess we could start from T-pop and K-pop, of why it's so held on to. I think the main thing is because, first of all, the Asian culture, and especially if we're talking about K-pop, the culture there is so, they cling on so tightly and proudly, which is a beautiful thing, to their culture, that it doesn't matter if there's English in it. I think it's because they're like, this is what we're doing, this is it. And I think just because they also have so much support from other institutions there. I mean, they have whole competitions going every day to form the next big K-pop band. People are constantly trying, like the whole country is so focused and so, let's do this on Korean pop music and adding English or whatever. Probably if they even added Spanish to it, it would still be as big, because the general country is so supportive and so, let's go get it with the K-pop culture. So I think that's why it's probably branched out so much, because you look at TikTok, you look at social media, and the members of these K-pop bands have over 5 million followers. Each are their own brand. So I think almost you can't even run away from it anymore. It's developing so fast, and they're getting all this global, national support. It's inevitable that they're going to be in the leading game of this bilingual.
And the government actually really works to fund it and support it.
Exactly. And I think that, to me, is one of the main reasons why K-pop is one of the leading genres right now, because there's just, not just music. Because the music is succeeding, beauty brands are succeeding. It's almost like the music and influencer identities become one, and all these members have their own identity. They have their own, following, and it's just so large now that why would you stop doing that? And it's the melodies and the dancing and the beauty and the glam is just so, I don't know, when you look at it, you can't not listen to that. You can't not follow into it. And when they put English in there, amazing, opens even more doors. So I think they've done a really good job at that, because of the general support and the foundation for K-pop is so fueled that it's leading in the world for it. It's glorified, and I think that's amazing. And it does encourage us to. They have Spanish English as well, which is also again because of the language. I think in that case the language is also one of the highest spoken languages in the world.
Yeah, so that helps.
Regardless, Spanish is always going to also be in the leading game. And I think with Turkish English, of one factor being the language is only spoken in very limited countries. So regardless, it's going to be a bit more, the market might be smaller. But I think it is amazing to see this generation putting out Turkish English songs and opening doors to people's ears that they maybe hadn't, taken a chance with before. I think we should keep doing it, because I think, yes, there's always going to be people who are maybe going to be against it, which is fine. Everyone has their own preference of music. But I think if we just keep going at it and we keep just mixing the two languages, there's no harm in it. And I'm so supportive for it to just keep going, because I don't know, like I just think back on I took note of it. I don't know if you heard of Salvador Adamo. His songs were translated into Turkish as well. And he came to Turkey and sang these songs in Turkish, and it was celebrated. Like when a fully foreign person comes to Turkey and they sing like a Turkish song, it's like, oh my God, wow, like this is amazing. But sometimes maybe when a Turkish person adds a bit of English, it might be like, wait, what's going on? Which is fine, because sometimes it's an out of the box thing to do, which at first is always going to be greeted with a bit of confusion. But I think, like you said, the generation now is also getting onto this like train of creating new colors with this Turkish English palette. It's opening up doors and people are getting curious. So I'm going on about it a lot, but I think what I'm trying to say is the fact that this is now happening is quite exciting for all of us. And I believe that it's going to catch on even more.
Yeah, I think so too. And what I like about this new generation is it's not like a project, like let's do this and get big. It's really coming from people's realities, because we have so many young people who go abroad to study, or like you or me are, you know, from different countries at the same time. So it's really an expression of living between cultures and languages that's real for you. You know?
And I think it's really, I mean, I was born here, and I will say I was raised here too. And I think I love our culture. I love the authenticity in our culture. I think it's one of the most originals ever. I mean, I love being from here. And I think to be able to show my friends who aren't Turkish, you know, what we're about, our language, our food, even our TV programs, the music, everything, just the mannerisms, to be able to deliver that to them in a way that they'll also listen to it. Because maybe they won't just straight up open a Turkish song, but they will listen to a Turkish English song, because there's also something in the song that speaks to them. So to be able to do that, and when I hear my foreign friends like, oh my God, like I don't know what you're saying, but it's so catchy. I love the melody. That's like, for me, that's like, okay, job done. Like you're digesting something that maybe you normally wouldn't try. But I guess like I look at musicians as chefs sometimes. It's like, it's nice to be able to cook from different cuisines and maybe show a friend, you know, try this cuisine, you know, because I mixed a bit of this spice and this spice. Why don't you try it? And suddenly they're hooked on it too. And then like that, with our Turkish English chefs, we'll slowly spread out this, I don't know if we want to call it a movement, but this style, I don't know. I think if we keep going at it, I think it's gonna catch on.
Yeah, definitely. And I like the cooking metaphor, because it's like fusion. There's enough that's familiar that you bring people in, but then there's enough that's different. That's exciting.
And everyone loves Turkish food. We know that.
They do.
So the music is also really good.
So the last thing I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned the K-pop singers and the use of social media and how that's really big. And I know you've thought a lot about these social media platforms and the way they often form the kind of launching pad for new musicians. And these days, of course, TikTok is really important, because a lot of people start their careers, they have a song go viral there. I know you're active on social media and on TikTok. And, you know, some people talk about the way that TikTok's really transformed music, making songs shorter, little snippets that get popular. I'm just curious about your own thoughts on social media and that platform, how you use it. Is it helpful? Does it change songwriting?
I mean, I have very mixed feelings on, I think things like Instagram, I feel like internally, I've hacked it. I don't know, because Instagram is more, you know, you post the photo, you post the video that you like, and people can either like it or not. And it catches attention regardless, because you have a following there. But I think with TikTok, maybe I have mixed feelings, because I don't think I've gone viral yet. I had one video go viral during the pandemic, went like globally viral. And that was like my moment of like stardom on TikTok. And then after that, it's really, I don't know, I found it really difficult, and I still find it really difficult, because I mean, I support it. I fully support it. I think it is a great way to branch out to different countries and different people everyone has access to TikTok. I'm not going to go into detail, but the amount of strange videos I've seen on TikTok in strange environments that you would not expect a TikTok to be taken, it's crazy, which just shows that the technology has moved so fast that everyone almost has access to it. So naturally, it's kind of exciting, because then, wow, my music can technically have access to everyone. But it can be a bit straining at times, because then, like you said, it falls into the category of, okay, do I make a song to make a song, or do I make a song because I want to go viral? Both. I mean, sometimes it's super lucky you make a song to make a song, and then some really smart person who is really good at TikTok finds it, speeds it up, makes it a TikTok trend, which is amazing. I'm still waiting for that to happen. But it can also be a little bit draining at times because you see all the success that some people get from TikTok and you're like, oh my God, like, how do I do that? Is there a remedy to this? Is it literally being natural and hoping for the best? Or is there like a scientific approach to hacking the algorithm? Like every day it does daunt me. It does kind of, I think a lot of musicians get a bit overwhelmed by the TikTok concept. I mean, I know so many artists that have been signed because a video of theirs went viral, which I think is amazing because nowadays it's like, yes, I think there's a positive and there's a negative side to being independent. There's a positive and negative side to being with a label. And I think TikTok is almost like broken the gatekeeping, the word gatekeepers, let's say. Almost TikTok has almost broke that. And now everyone has access to reaching larger audiences. It's not just the big labels anymore. But yeah, I think I have mixed feelings. I love it and I hate it. I'm not going to say, hey, I love it. And sometimes I'm not fond of it. But I'm not going to lie. I also spend a lot of my days just like scrolling on TikTok and I find a song and, you know, that's the one I want to use for my next TikTok video. But it is also fun to see how life's developing. But I'm not sure about songs being 1 minute. I think I will forever stand by like albums and EPs and full out songs. I think it's great to have a couple like short, sweet, you know, the TikTok vibe, but I think having that foundation of something that you can look back on as like a conceptual piece, for me personally, is just always going to be something that I love to do.
Yeah, definitely. And you have that kind of classical background and albums and, you know.
Yeah, and I know it's harder nowadays. I do realize, I have heard from friends as well that, you know, oh man, but people don't listen to albums anymore. But I don't think so. I think they're always going to come and go. I think it's always great to do the whole single thing, to really show yourself as a person. Like, I've done this, I can do this and this and this. But I think at the end of the day, you want to also look and be like, okay, this was a whole body of work. And then the next album is completely different. I think that's really fun.
There's value to that.
Yeah,
still.
I think so too. But, you know, each to their own.
Yeah, of course. Lastly, I wanted to say, you know, I saw your concert at Blind in Taksim the other night. I wanted to, you know, I know you're in Istanbul now. I wanted to ask, do you have anything coming up you're excited about, whether it's putting out new music or see you at?
Music-wise, I am working on a short album, Turkish and English. Kind of like what I spoke to you about earlier. I wanted to also do just Turkish songs because, like I said, some of the songs I think just deserve to be in Turkish because the language is so, I think it's so beautiful that I'm like, I can't put English in there right now. Like, I just want to keep it like that. And then some English, I'm like, okay, I explain myself and what I wanted to say with English better. So some just English and then some mixing the two cuisines. But yeah, that's hopefully going to come out sometime next year. And yeah, hopefully a couple of the singles will come out at the beginning of the year. But I'm excited. It's a little bit more different to what I've done, but why not?
Great. I'm excited to hear it all.
Why not?
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
It was a real pleasure talking.
Yeah, it was a pleasure talking to you too. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Do we wave? See you next time.